Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you guys are good. Today we will be talking about some more NUST entry test past paper questions from the maths section, specifically from the 13th and 14th chapter, that is solutions of trigonometric equations and inverse trigonometric functions. So let's get started. Okay. All right. Okay. So first of all, before talking about the past paper questions, we need to have a quick overview of the contents just so we are able to understand each and everything. Okay. Now, this is something I was talking about yesterday. I was telling you guys that since in the NUST NT test calculators are not allowed, data booklets would not be given, so you would be memorizing quite a lot of stuff. And this is the very first and the most important thing. You need to memorize the values of sine, cos, and tan on different angles like 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, or 0 radians, pi by 6 radians, pi by 4 radians, pi by 3 radians, or pi by 2 radians. This is the most important thing, and those who have given ND2 or NET1 without preparation, because I know students, they just sit in the exam to see the pattern, the environment, and everything. You guys must have seen that if you had all these values in your mind, you would have been able to solve, I would say, 10 to 15 questions, right? Like another 10 to 15 questions which you were not able to solve initially. So, this is something you need to know. I'm emphasizing on the importance of this again and again because you have to memorize these values. Okay, so this is telling us that sine theta at theta equals 0 is 0. Then sine theta at theta equals 30 is 1 by 2. Sine theta at theta equals 45 is root 2 by 2. Sine theta at 60 degree is root 3 by 2, and sine theta at 90 degrees is 1. Some of the values would be clear if you know how to plot the graph. For example, if I talk about the graph of sine quickly, this overview is very important for your understanding. So please stay attentive. This is 360, this is 180, this is 0, and this is 90, right? So even from here I can see that sine at 90 degrees is 1, and this would help me know a few values, but this table is something which would give you the complete information and you would be able to solve all the questions. Okay, so this is for sine. If I talk about for tan, here it is. Tan is 0 at 0 degrees, then tan is root 3 by 3 at 30 degrees, tan is 1 at 45 or pi by 4 radians, it is root 3 at 60 degrees or pi by 3, and it is undefined on pi by 2 radians or 90 degrees. So the interpretation of this table is important, and by now I assume things are clear. So I'm just erasing everything because we'll be referring to this table again and again. And once you have all these values in your mind, then when you'll solve questions, you'll see you would be able to score a good number of marks. All right, okay. Let's talk about the next thing, that is an example. Okay. Now, since this is the 13th chapter where you need to solve trigonometric equations, so what exactly a trigonometric equation looks like? Any trigonometric equation would be an equation with equality sign, and it would be having one, two, or three trigonometric functions. It could be sine, cos, tan, cosecant, cot, secant. You need to play with these trigonometric functions such that you are able to convert all of them in one trigonometric function using different identities. And once you have the basic equation, this question itself is very basic. But for example, let's say if you have a question of this type, now initially it is complicated. You'll do some working, we'll use some identities, we'll find a basic equation, and then I'll tell you how to solve the basic equation. Okay, all right, so this is how any basic trigonometry question or any basic equation looks like. It says sine of x degrees is equal to 1 and the range of x is from 0 to 720. So this is important. This range has a lot to do in these questions, so never ever forget it. This is important. Okay, now this is the question. In order to find the value of x, you'll simply do sine inverse 1. Now how would you know the value of sine inverse 1? We'll scroll up to the table. The table would not be given in exam, you need to memorize it, but once you have this in your mind, so you can see that sine theta is 1 when your theta is 90 degrees or pi by 2. Again, sine theta is 1 when your theta is 90 degrees or pi by 2. So what is happening over here? You need to find the value of theta or x when this is equal to 1. Okay, so for that I looked up in the table, and since my range or this interval is in degrees, I need to pick the value of theta or x in degrees, and it is 90 degrees. Now this 90 degrees is just one answer, but when you have such big interval, you need to think about all the possibilities. Okay, so how do we think about all the possibilities? I'll tell you from here. Let's talk about the graph of sine. It starts off like this at 180, 360, then this. Okay, so this value is 180, this is 360, and then this value is 720. This is 1, this is minus 1, and we are talking about sine of x, and this is x degrees. Okay, so we are just interested in seeing that on what values of x or theta is sine giving you 1. So sine is giving you 1 on multiple places, on this, on this. If I make a line like this, I can see that on this point sine is 1 and on this point sine is 1. So this is 90 degrees. We got that already through the table. And what about this value? I can clearly see that till here I have 360. I need to do 360 plus 90 in order to find this value, and it would be 450. So 450 and 90 degrees are the two answers. Now I know if I keep making this graph, this point would also give me 1, but that would be something after 720, that would be 810, and 810 is not included in my range, it is ending at 720, so I need to be sure about the range. Okay, so that is how I am going to find the values of the theta or x in trigonometric equations. So this was an easy question, in fact very easy question. Let's talk about a complicated question then. Okay, now please stay attentive, this is important, please pay attention all of you. It says solve the following equation. Now, what exactly is the equation? Okay. The equation is 2 cos square theta plus 3 sine theta minus 3. Now, when we started off with this, I told you that in trigonometric equations, you can have different trigonometric functions. Like in this equation, this is an equation because we have this equality sign, we have sine, and we have cos square. And I told you that for such scenarios, we need to use some identities and some properties in order to convert all those different trigonometric functions into one trigonometric function, just so we are able to find the basic equation, the one we just solved, right? Something of that type. Okay, all right, so this is our question. Now, if I think about some properties which we have been using lately quite a lot of times, I know that cos square theta plus sine square theta is equal to 1. Now, this is something which you need to memorize. The examiner would not tell you, and it won't be given anywhere in the question or in the entire exam. You need to memorize these. I'm telling you again and again. In trigonometry specifically, you will have quite a lot of content to memorize, and without that, you won't be able to solve these questions. Okay, and that content is what I've been sharing in the beginning of these questions. So you can always refer to this information and just prepare yourselves. Okay. All right. So this is what I know. Now if I make cos square theta the subject of the equation, so I can write it as 1 minus sine square theta. Now instead of this cos square theta, I can write down 1 minus sine square theta like this. And what would be the advantage? The advantage would be something which I've told you earlier as well. You need to make sure that in any trigonometric equation, the trigonometric function should be same, thus so you are able to simplify it. With two different trigonometric functions, you cannot simplify it, right? You need to have one same trigonometric function. So we have sine square theta and we have sine theta. Sine and sine are same, so things are easy now. Okay, so I've used the basic trigonometric identity. I've plugged in here and I got this. Now I'll multiply this 2 with 1 and this 2 with sine square theta. I got 2 minus 2 sine square theta plus 3 sine theta and minus 3. All of this was there already. After simplifying this, I got this equation. In case of any queries, just stop me right now. Comment in the chat box or in the um, comment box. I'll answer you there and then. Please just stop me right now just so I can explain you if you have any queries. Okay, all right. Now, once we have the second last equation, things are clear. Now, we'll just multiply minus just to make things easier for ourselves. And this is what you have, okay? Now, at this point, either you can think about it maturely, you can deal it as a quadratic equation directly, or what you can do is just use any substitution. Let's say t equals sine theta. Okay, when you will do t equals sine theta, this would become t squared, the sine squared would become t squared, the sine theta would become t, and rest of the things would stay as it is. And what is going to happen after that? This is your quadratic equation. Now you guys know how to solve any quadratic equation by factorizing it, and once you have the factors, it would look something of this type. And you can write this thing as t minus 1 equals 0 and 2t minus 1 equals 0. So t would be equal to 1 and t would be equal to 1 by 2. In case of any queries, to stop me right now. I'll just wait for a few seconds, try absorbing all of this, and then I'll tell you how to solve it further. All right, okay. Now we know that we use this substitution that t equals sine theta. So I can again just write down sine theta equals 1 and sine theta equals 1 by 2. Now, guys, this is the simplified trigonometric equation I was talking about. This right here is the simplified trigonometric equation I was talking about. Okay. Now, when you have this and this, things are easy, but still you need to understand a few things and then you're good to go. Okay. Now, again, whenever you're solving any equation, you need to find the value of the unknown variable. So our unknown is theta. You need to find the value of theta when sine theta is 1. So you will scroll up to the table, not in the examination hall. Oh, by that time you need to memorize all of this, but for this class only. So we know that sine of theta is 1 when the theta is 90 degrees or pi by 2. The selection or this choice that if it would be in degrees or radians totally depends on the interval. If the interval is in degrees, you'll choose the angle in degrees. If the interval is in radians, you'll choose the answer in radians. That is completely up to you. And it obviously depends on the scenario. This time around, since the interval is not given, so it is up to you. Okay. So we can just go with 90 degrees. All right, okay. So here they have used theta equals pi by 2, but you can always write it as this as well, because in the beginning of the question, no interval is given, right? So it is completely your choice. And this has given you the basic angle. Okay. Now this was your first equation. If I talk about the second equation, you need to find the value of theta when sine theta is giving you 1 by 2. So now sine theta is giving you 1 by 2. Can anyone tell me what would be the answer? It would be 30 degrees or pi by 6, because sine theta is 1 by 2 on 30 degrees or pi by 6, right? Again, you can go with any answer because here the interval is not specified. So they have just given the answer in radians as pi by 6. All right. Now you can always write it as 30 degrees as well. Okay. Now please pay attention. Once you are clear with this time around the interval is not given. But what if the interval is given? Let's just talk about this case. Let's say the interval was from 0 to 180 degrees. Okay. Let's say this is your interval and you got the basic angle as 30. Would this be your only answer? No. Like previous question, when we had interval, we need to think about it logically. Now, if this time around I won't be making the graph, I'll tell you another method. So in maths, we have four quadrants. This is all positive, sine positive, tan positive, and cos positive. You can remember this way. Add sugar to cup. All means all the trigonometric identities are greater than 0. Sine means sine is greater than 0. Tan is greater than 0, and cos is greater than 0. Okay. Now, what is going to happen next? Once you're clear with this thing, you need to find all the thetas lying in this range. Okay. This 30 degrees or pi by 6 is your answer in the first quadrant. Now you can see that sine theta is positive, so it would be positive in the first quadrant because all are positive, or it would be positive in the second quadrant because sine is positive. So you need to give both the answers, because this is 0 degrees and this is 180 degrees, and you can use the first two quadrants in this case. Okay. And what would be the answer in the second quadrant? Again, the basic angle would be same in the second quadrant, that is 30 degrees, but the answer would be starting from here to here. So it would be 180 minus 30, that would be 150. So along with 30 degrees, your answer would be 150 as well. This is an important concept and you need to understand that. I am just going to erase some other things which we have right here, just so it is more clear. Okay. Now I've just told you, you need to memorize it this way. It is add sugar to cup. So sine is positive in the first two quadrants. We'll be only talking about the first two quadrants. Angle in the first quadrant is calculated this way, that turned out to be 30, and for the second one it is calculated this way. So if the basic angle is 30, 180 minus 30 would give you 150. So this would have been the answer if you had the interval thing and stuff like that, just like we did in the previous question. But in the previous question, we used the graph, and in this question, I wanted to talk about these quadrants as well. Okay, so this is how you solve any trigonometric equation. All right, these were some examples related to trigonometric equations where we had some trigonometric functions along with the equality sign, and you were supposed to solve it. Okay, let's talk about the next most important thing. Since I told you in the beginning This is not one chapter. We will be talking about two chapters here. Solutions of trigonometry and inverse trigonometric functions. So, sine, cos, tan, secant, cosecant, and cot. These are your six trigonometric functions, like the basic ones. And all of these functions have inverses. So I have sine inverse, cos inverse, tan inverse, secant inverse, cosecant inverse, cot inverse. So we have four groups of properties which you need to memorize. Some of them are very easy, some of them are you need to just remember them from the exam point of view. And yeah, that is the idea. Okay, so we'll be talking about a few, thus so things are clear. The first one is sine inverse of minus x is equal to minus sine inverse x. We'll be using this again and again, so it's important to understand. Now, in the table, you do not have negative angles, you only have positive angles. But let's say in some question you come across a negative angle, how would you deal at that time? You will be using these properties, right? Now it says cos inverse minus x. Now, this x is not the angle. We know we write it down this way: cos theta equals x. So your theta is basically equal to cos inverse x. Okay, so please be clear, this x is not your angle, this x is just this value, these values right here. And all of these values are positive. Okay, so how would we be solving for negative ones? We'll be using this table of identities. Okay, all right. Then let's talk about some more quickly. All right. Then you need to understand that for tan inverse minus x, it is minus tan inverse, and then everything is there, right? But the most important ones are 1, 2, and 3. These are the most important ones. Then, whenever you have sine inverse of x plus cos inverse of x, it would give you pi by 2. This is very important. And then these three are extremely important, right? So yes, you need to memorize all of them, but the most important ones are the ones I've ticked. What is happening in the first one? Sine inverse of minus x is equal to minus sine inverse of x. Please try learning these with me right now. Cos inverse of minus x is pi minus cos inverse of x. Tan inverse of minus x is minus tan inverse of x. Then sine inverse x plus cos inverse x would always give you pi by 2 whenever this value is same. It would give you pi by 2 no matter what. And then we know that cosecant is 1 by sine, secant is 1 by cos, and cot is 1 by tan. But when we talk about their inverses, cosecant inverse is not equal to 1 by sine inverse. Please pay attention, this is important. Cosecant inverse is equal to sine inverse of 1 by x. Secant inverse of x is equal to cosecant inverse of 1 by x. And cot inverse of x is not equal to 1 by tan inverse. Please, it is equal to tan inverse 1 by x. These are important. I'm emphasizing on them because these identities are always messed up by students. They get confused for some reason and they end up making blenders. Please be clear about these. You'll see we'll be using these identities again and again. That is why I want you to memorize these. Okay, all right. So for this class, we need to focus on the seven identities, and we'll talk about the other ones in the next chapters. All right. Okay. So let's get started with the questions now. Okay. Here is the first question. It says, which of the following is a solution of cos 3x equals 1 by 2? Now, my first question is, what exactly is this? This is a trigonometric equation. Why is it a trigonometric equation? Because it has an equality sign as well as a trigonometric function. So, it is a trigonometric equation. Fair enough. How do we solve any equation? We solve any equation by finding out the value of the unknown variable. What is the unknown variable here? This is your unknown variable. How do you solve Or how do you find the value of any unknown variable? You do that by making x the subject, okay? So first of all, I am going to take this cos on the other side, but I will not divide it or stuff like that. Please be clear. I'll take cos inverse on both sides, and when I'll take cos inverse of that side, it would give you 3x equals cos inverse of 1 by 2. Now we have 3x equals cos inverse 1 by 2. Still, we did not get the value of x. We need to make x the subject. It is being multiplied right now. I need to divide 3 on both sides. So it would give me cos inverse 1 by 2. And when I will divide it by 3, this would be the answer. So it is option D. Now for this question, you are not supposed to find the value. Yes, obviously, first of all, you'll just try finding out the value. For example, we'll just scroll up and see for what value of theta is cos 1 by 2. So cos is 1 by 2 for pi by 3. Okay. Cos is 1 by 2 for pi by 3. Fair enough. Cos is 1 by 2 at pi by 3. So it means that 3x would basically be equal to pi by 3, and when I will divide this 3 on the other side, this would give me pi by 9. So I do not have pi by 9 anywhere, okay? 60 degrees is not the correct answer. So the only choice that is correct for this scenario is option D. Yes, obviously, in general, when you will come across such questions, you will try finding out the numerical value and not the notation. But I could see that A, B would not work for this scenario. Arc inverse is basically cos inverse. And just by following notation, I could see that D would be the correct answer for this question. All right, let's talk about the next question then. Okay, now it is direct use of an identity. Sine inverse of x plus cos inverse of x is equal to what? So we are going to scroll up now, and this is the most important one I was talking about. So sine inverse of x plus cos inverse of x is basically pi by 2. So the answer would be pi by 2. Please try memorizing things right now with me. Do not think that you still have more than a month. You would be able to. Trust me, time flies. I myself am a NUST graduate, and I still remember I started my preparation 2 months before, and I initially spent most of the time in memorizing stuff because I was basically from the A level background, and I could see that things were different there. We used to have data booklet there, but unlike the Cambridge system, I had to memorize stuff. So just to pass the exam, I had to do that, and you need to do this as well. Okay, all right. Okay, let's talk about the third question. Okay, now this is another important concept which we need to understand. Range of tan inverse of x. Okay. Now when we talk about the range of any inverse function, this concept is clear, and it should be clear from what we have studied in functions. Okay. You should know that range of inverse function is basically equal to the domain of function. Okay. Now it says range of tan inverse of x, and in the last class, or I suppose the previous class, I think the one on Monday, we were talking about the graphs of trigonometry. And there I told you, whenever we were coming across range or amplitude, I was focusing on the y axis, and whenever we were talking about the domain or period, we were focusing on the x axis. But when the question is about tan inverse, sine inverse, cos inverse, you cannot memorize every graph, obviously, okay? So if the question is about the range of inverse function, think about the domain of function. Now, it is Range of tan inverse. Range of tan inverse is domain of tan of x. Now I do remember, and all of you would be clear with this, when we talk about domain of tan of x, we can think about it through the graph, because you'll have to memorize these graphs obviously. And this is how it looks like, and then we have a dotted line, and then again the same pattern, and then a dotted line, right? So this is minus pi by 2, and this is pi by 2. So I can think about this as a valid domain from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. So the answer is going to be C. Obviously, the answer is not R, because it is not valid for all the values. We have some discontinuities like on pi by 2 and minus pi by 2. This cannot be the answer because it is including minus pi by 2 and pi by 2. And then D, again, we have discontinuity at pi by 2, and this range is including that, so that is why it is not the answer, right? So I've been talking about this strategy quite a lot of times. In NET you would be dealing with MCQs only, so let's say if you're not able to understand any question, you would be at least able to understand that which options can certainly be not the answer, so just cross them out, and the one with which you are left with would be the correct answer. Okay, so this would be C. All right, let's talk about the next one then. Now it says the range of cosecant inverse of x. All right. Now when we talk about cosecant inverse of x, again you need to think about it logically. So the range of this is basically the domain of cosecant inverse. Okay, it is basically the domain of cosecant only, not inverse. It is the domain of cosecant. And what is the domain of cosecant? For the domain of cosecant, you need to think about the graph, or you need to think about the graph of sine at least, and then we know that we had something of this type, right? And we had discontinuity. This value is pi, and this value is 0. Okay, so obviously A is not the answer, because it just has from 0 to pi, and this value is 2 pi. We need to talk about one entire shape. B is not the answer obviously, and then C is again not the answer, because at pi we have discontinuity. So the only choice we are left with is D. It would be the answer. Also, for the complicated trigonometric functions like secant, cosecant, and cot, when the question is about their what do you say, when the question is about their range or domain, you can just memorize this much stuff. So actually the range of cosecant inverse is B minus 0, because if I talk about the shape of cosecant inverse, I'll quickly explain this because it is important for understanding. If anyone is not able to understand, you can directly just memorize this, but it would be easy to understand, don't worry. Okay, this is my y-axis, this is my x-axis. Okay, the graph is something of this type. We have minus pi by 2 here, and we have pi by 2 here. Okay, so it is from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, but we do not have any value at 0, so you need to subtract this 0. Once you have subtracted this 0, it would be okay, but otherwise it is not okay. So that is something which you need to understand clearly. Okay, all right, so this is how we can understand these things. So either you can memorize it, or you can think about these MCQs logically, and still you would be able to solve it. Let's talk about the next question. Okay. Now it is an interesting question. Here we'll be using the tables again and again. It says cosecant inverse of minus 2 by root 2. Okay. So first of all, I need to know one thing, that I can write it as cosecant of theta equals minus 2 by root 2. I am not sure about the value of cosecant theta. I don't know how to memorize this much stuff. I know that cosecant can be written as 1 by sine. So I'll write it as 1 by sine theta, and it is equal to minus 2 by root 2, and upon simplification I would get sine theta equals root 2 by 2 with a negative sign. Okay, now this is the point which I was talking about when I was explaining those tables and the properties. Now you need to find the value of theta where sine theta is minus root 2 by 2. In short, you need to find theta equals sine inverse minus root 2 by 2. Now I'll scroll up to the blue table in the very beginning, and I do not have sine minus root 2 by 2. I only have sine a- um, as root 2 by 2. So what am I going to use here? I need to use this property. Again, this is the important one, that whenever you have sine inverse of minus x, that is same as minus sine inverse of x. So I can write this thing as minus sine inverse of root 2 by 2, and sine is root 2 by 2 at pi by 4. So it is going to give me minus pi by 4 as the answer. It would be minus pi by 4. So the answer in this case is going to be option number A. Okay, all right. Let's talk about the next question quickly. This is again very important. It says, which of the following can be the solution of sine 2x equals cos x? Okay. Now for this question, you need to think about things very, very logically. Okay. I need to solve this equation, and I've been telling you guys you need to make sure that in any trigonometric equation, your trigonometric function should be same, thus so you are able to simplify it. Now I know that sine 2x can be written as 2 sine x cos x equals cos x. Now please make sure that you do not cancel out this cos x and cos x, because this way you would be missing out a solution. So I will take this cos x on this side, and it would give you 2 sine x cos x minus cos x equals 0. I'll take cos x common, and it would give me 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0. And now cos of x is 0 and sine of x is equal to 1 by 2. Now I can think about the answers. Okay, so I'll scroll up for this first equation and the second equation. So I need cos 0 and sine 1 by 2. Alright, so here's the table. First of all, let's talk about cos. So cos is 0 at pi by 2. Okay, and then sine is 1 by 2 at pi by 6. Alright. These are the two values I'm getting. For cos it is pi by 2, and for sine it is pi by 6. Okay. Now the question says, which of the following can be the solutions of this question? Okay. Now I need to understand this logically. Again, this concept is about you can think about it through the graph. X equals pi by 2. Now cos is 0 when theta is pi by 2. This is pi by 2, and this is 3 pi by 2, and this is cos theta, and this is theta. Now I can see that cos is 0 on pi by 2 and cos is 0 on 3 pi by 2. And if I talk about the sine graph, I can again think about the quadrant and find the other values, but that is not needed, because if I look at all the answer choices, I cannot find pi by 6 anywhere. So I'll discard this and I'll just go with this one. So D is going to be the answer. Now, we are not sure about why pi by 6 is discarded. Since this exam would be an MCQ exam, you need to think about things logically. If you have two equations, if one answer is matching and you are not able to find the other one, just cancel that out and just focus on the one which you're able to find, and that would be the answer. Maybe it is because of the interval or something of that type, but yes, whatever it is, pi by 2 and 3 pi by 2 are there, so D is going to be the answer. So this is the first part of these two chapters. We'll be talking about the second part tomorrow. In case of any queries, any uncertainties, just ask me right now by commenting in the chat box. And if you're interested in full live classes where we will be covering, because that has not started yet, we'll be covering past paper questions as well as course contents. So in that case, you can just use the link in description to get yourselves registered for that course. Thank you very much. Take care. Allah